Tonight, how ruthless crooks are making big money crashing cars for cash.
It's not pin money. Organised gangs can make millions of pounds a year.
Staging accidents by forcing innocent drivers to run into them.
Quite often they actually try and profile the type of individual that they go for.
Putting lives at risk.
This goes way beyond a victimless crime. It is only a matter of time until somebody is killed.
Now, the cops are finally tackling an epidemic of fraud which is making criminal drivers rich.
Committing one of those accidents a day, 52 weeks of the year, they could make up to £8 million a year.
"6 a.m, the outskirts of London. A criminal crash for cash is underway. The black Renault overtaking the lorry is being driven by a man who intends to cause an accident which will enable him to make a false insurance claim for a non-existent injury. This was only caught on camera because the fraudulent driver was being followed and videoed by a newspaper journalist.
We first heard about the cash for crash scam from a Polish couple who contacted the newspaper to say that they had been caught up in this gang against their will and were being made to crash cars for a living. It sounded extraordinary, but something we had to check out and see if it was true. So we took the decision to go out there ourselves, follow them.
No, I don't think you're going to do it, are they? It's not getting quick enough, surely.
The gang members had been driving up and down the A40 for up to 40 minutes, waiting for the right vehicle to arrive that they felt they could cause a crash that would be realistic. The Renault Clio suddenly swerved in front, and of course the poor lorry driver could do nothing but plough into the back. It was absolutely terrifying witnessing what was happening and not knowing exactly what the repercussions were going to be of this crash. You know, were people going to be injured? How much damage was going to be caused? It was very frightening.
The truck driver took the blame and the car driver claimed he suffered whiplash. Part of a carefully planned scam which relies on one of the golden rules of the road. Run into the back of me and it's your fault.
They stop for no apparent reason, you go in the back of them. And the old view of that was, well, I have to be liable, I went into the back of them, I have to be responsible for this accident.
The staged accident on the A40 isn't the only crash for cash on record, though it is rare to actually see them photographed. When low-speed pranks started happening on a roundabout outside Manchester on a daily basis, insurance companies and their investigators realised they were dealing with organised crime on a grand scale.
It's almost franchised, and we use that term loosely when we see how the crash for cash scenario moves from potentially Manchester down to Stoke and then to London.
The franchise is complex and involves criminal gangs who use the insurance details they get from innocent drivers to claim large sums of money. The whiplash injuries are just part of it.
When it becomes organised and that you have hundreds and perhaps thousands of claims, it's very easy for this to get to millions of pounds of money being basically stolen.
The Manchester Crash for Cash franchise was first spotted not by the police or insurance companies, but by a 28-year-old office worker, Debbie Jones. Her desk overlooked the Eden Point roundabout on the A34 near Stockport.
My colleague first saw the first accident. He stood at his window faxing a document, and he noticed a car going round the roundabout until eventually it kept stopping at the junction, and until eventually something did come into the back of it and hit him. We took a few pictures of it. As more and more started happening, we knew then that they were becoming stage accidents.
What would usually happen is vehicles would travel along the near side lane and the offending vehicle would pass him on the approach to the roundabout before moving back into the near side lane directly in front of the victim. Then as the offender got near to the give way, he would slam on his brakes. When the roundabout was clear, and caused the rear vehicle to collide into the back of him.
Before the police got involved in the crashes for cash at Eden Point, the office workers realised that the fraudsters were even using the same car to cause more than one collision. Debbie Jones was out driving her own car at lunchtime when she witnessed yet another accident.
I just happened to note the number plate of the car, got back to the office, and about an hour later my boss looked out of the window and obviously an accident happened, and I just said, "Oh, don't tell me it's a green Audi with a number plate," and I reeled it off, and he just looked at me in disbelief because, you know, that I knew the number plate.
The car which ran into the back of the green Audi was a red Volvo. Behind the wheel was Geoffrey Clay, a retired aircraft designer from Rochdale.
He pulled in front of me, and I was only travelling at walking speed, and I'd travelled about 15, 20 feet at the most, and he just suddenly stopped dead in front of me. There was no indication that he was stopping, no brake lights came on, and I slammed my brakes on, but I still slid into the back of him.
It made quite a mess of his car. We felt a bit sorry for him, so we went down and we did sort of just mention to him that there had been some stage accidents.
The lady said, "That's the second time today that car's been involved in an accident at this roundabout. We have seen that car driving up and down this road all morning." And I thought, that's funny.
When Kevin Mayer, a railway worker, ran his van into the back of a Toyota Yaris on the same roundabout, he didn't think it funny at all. Especially when the driver and his passenger immediately cried whiplash.
Car in front of me wasn't going very fast at this point, probably 10, 15 miles per hour, then suddenly slammed on their brakes. The airbags weren't deployed, there was a minimal thud. I didn't move from my seat one bit, it was very light. We got out of the van and the two occupants of the Toyota Yaris got out, both holding their necks and their lower back and making groaning noises, which, thinking back now, is amusing. But at the time, I was, more worried that I'd gone into the back of someone, really.
Kevin Mayer didn't know it, but the someone he had run into the back of was being paid to cause the crash by criminals running what is called an accident claims management company, a one-stop shop which says it takes the strain out of making a claim.
If you're involved in an accident, you might seek the services of a claims management company to help you get your car repaired, to help you get compensation for injuries, to help you to get a hire car, for example.
The claims management company behind the Eden Point accidents were doing far more than help the people who caused the accidents to get money.
Individual claimants may receive some of the money, but it's really the claims management companies that we have concerns with. Every time a claims management company refers your claim to a solicitor, to a credit hire company, to a doctor, they'll receive a referral fee.
The referral fees came from the innocent drivers' insurance companies and went straight into the pockets of the masterminds running the whole criminal scam.
It's like any criminal activity, really. The guys that are actually at the top of the tree in the hierarchy will perhaps coerce more vulnerable individuals in the community to do their driving for them, pay them a small fee. Committing one of those accidents a day, 52 weeks of the year, they could make up to £8 million a year.
It wasn't long before the crooked millionaires caught the eye of the Greater Manchester Police, who set up a task force to investigate the Eden Point crash for cash ring.
The investigation was very structured. We looked at the location, we saw what the scale of the problem was. We contacted insurance companies. We then contacted some of the victims involved, and we established that the lead vehicle had always braked for no reason. There was a common pattern that started to unfold, which gave us more and more grounds and more suspicions about what was actually taking place.
With their suspicions aroused, the task force did more than just study photographs.
The way I see it working today, guys, is a couple of phases, really. Enter and arrest, and then search and seize.
The search and seize involves a raid on the home of one of the directors of this claims management company. The task force believe he's one of those behind the Eden Point roundabout crashes.
This case is involving, on the face of it, legitimate businesses. Now, those purported legitimate businesses are fronts for fraud.
Let's go! Let's go!
Fronts for fraud means the people who have actually been making the false accident and personal injury claims to unsuspecting insurance companies. The team's warrant gives them the right to enter the premises, even when no one's in.
Right, put this door in. Go on, go! Right, get in! Stand it, please. Go, go, go!
But the house isn't empty. Someone's upstairs. They obviously failed to hear the knock on the front door.
For whatever reason, they didn't want to open the door, so we managed to gain access, obviously, through this garage, and the only damage we seem to have done is to a small internal door.
Unfortunately, the person that we were specifically here for isn't present. However, we are still going to carry out a search and attempt to recover evidence against that person.
The police aren't looking for the drivers who caused the crashes for cash. They want a paper trail of evidence which will lead them to the people at the top.
With the fraud, you're starting from the proviso of these individuals are setting out to deceive. So it requires much stronger forensic investigation and a paper trail that quite often has been shredded as you go along.
This time, there hasn't been a lot of shredding, and the raid team are confident they're on the right track.
What we've put in the car is hard drives of computers, memory sticks, associated paperwork, mobile phones. So all in all, quite a good find.
Manchester's Crash for Cash task force also started to examine some of the cars involved in the roundabout accidents. This Mercedes was involved in the last crash to be photographed by Debbie Jones and her workmates. This time, they left their desks.
On the last accident that did happen, 3 of my colleagues did actually go down and warn the driver, and again it was a big wagon driver that got caught up in it, and they did warn him that, you know, this was a scam that was happening, and the driver wasn't very happy that we'd done that.
As the unhappy driver who caused the accident left the scene, the driver of the wagon repeated the office worker's allegations to his insurance company. When its chief investigator received a claim for tens of thousands of pounds to write off the Mercedes involved in the crash, he turned to the Eden Point photographs for help.
This is the Mercedes saloon leaving the scene. You'd be very hard-pressed to see what damage has been caused to that Mercedes from that photograph. We were told by the witnesses and by our insured that it was nothing more than a scratch to the bumper. The next photograph shows how the vehicle was presented to the insurance company when the claim was made. So obviously the vehicle left the scene in that state, and then has obviously been further damaged to exaggerate the collision, because this is how it was presented to the insurance company.
Investigator Dalton called in the Greater Manchester Police, who soon realised they'd found a variation on their Crash for Cash scam.
This vehicle became the catalyst of the industry becoming aware that something wasn't quite right. A vehicle would be undamaged leaving the scene, it would sustain post-accident damage, as in this case. A claim would be made for the recovery of the vehicle and the subsequent storage of the vehicle. This has been coordinated through the claims management companies that have come into our investigation.
The insurance fraud arena involves so many people. It involves policyholders, it involves passengers, it involves accident management companies, it involves the insurers, it involves recovery companies, it involves engineers. It is very, very difficult to unravel it.
When the Manchester cops got their hands on the green Audi, which the Eden Point office workers witnessed being crashed twice within an hour, they found yet another fraudulent twist. A write-off which was virtually untouched.
All vehicles, when they're involved in collisions, need to have an engineer's report submitted to support the fact that X, Y and Z damage has been caused. This is the vehicle as it was in the state when we recovered it. There's barely any damage that's visible to the vehicle. Well, the engineer's report would indicate that this vehicle needed a rear bumper cover, rear bumper trims, rear bumper carrier, a boot lid, boot hinges, a rear panel assembly, rear panel trims, offside rear chassis leg, boot floor, offside rear quarter panel and pad, offside quarter panel trims, offside rear wheel arch, offside door moulding and badges. And the repair costs are estimated in excess of £5,000, hence why the vehicle's been shown as a total loss. I think the car speaks for itself.
You can sit yourself down there, please.
At a police station in Manchester, these two men certainly aren't speaking for themselves.
You are charged with the following offences: conspired together with other persons, namely misleading insurance companies, intending to make a gain, namely monies, for yourself. That's what you've been charged with. Do you wish to make any reply to that charge?
I take that as no reply.
No reply.
Well, we've just charged two more suspects with conspiracy to commit fraud arising out of this investigation. Both those individuals are not only claimants for collisions involved at the Eden Point roundabout, they are the director and company secretary of a claims management business working out of Manchester. They have claimed for injuries and recovery and storage, just like everybody else has that's been involved in this fraud.
Right, John, just follow me.
These men aren't accused of driving the cars which suddenly brake to cause the accidents at Eden Point. The task force has someone else in the frame for that. They suspect one man is behind all the crashes at the roundabout.
There were so many common features. The description of the individuals in the lead vehicles was always the same. Where they stopped to exchange details was the same. The cars always sustained minimum damage, and then they were driven from the scene. All these things started to show a pattern, a system of behaviour by the offenders.
The system of behaviour and the large number of photographs taken by the Eden Point workers suggest the theory was right. But how to prove it? The pictures are just too unclear.
From the witness testimony and the descriptions given by the witnesses, coupled with the photographs, it was clearly necessary for us to show that the person who we believed was one and the same person was in fact that. And to do that, you would require an expert to examine the photographs.
The expert was a facial reconstruction specialist, Richard Neve. Waking the identities of the dead from skulls and skeletons is only one of his skills.
We get contacted by the police when they want to compare images of people, whether the individual seen on, say, one set of images could or could not be the same individual seen on another set of images. And in this case, we got 7 albums recording an incident where a car went into the back of another car. So we go through the entire collection and see whether we have similarity on each of these occasions.
Richard Neve doesn't only examine photographs. He uses computers to compare and highlight key features like bone lengths, torsos, skin colour and even clothing.
The same features and the same build was seen on the individual in each of the incidents, which provides demonstrable support to the allegation that it's the same person on each occasion.
Knowing they were definitely after one individual enabled the police to come up with a name.
Through arresting the claimants involved in those collisions and through our own background enquiries, we came up with a suspect, and that suspect was Mohammed Patel.
Having a suspect for their blurred face was one thing. Proving he was the crash for cash master driver, quite another.
We thought, if this man is so active, the best evidence would be to actually catch him in the act. So a decision was made to put Patel under a directed surveillance.
While the Manchester task force set about their directed surveillance, the police in London were becoming increasingly concerned by another new car crime scam. Not involving fake insurance claims, but criminals who use the internet to advertise bargain cars from abroad and fleece unsuspecting buyers. You pay your money to a shipping company and they promise to get you the cut-price car. But they don't.
They will go to a lot of time and trouble in making this look absolutely spot on, professionally produced. It looks like it's a long-established company, but this is a scam website. Because the website is designed as so professional, it's very hard to tell just by simply looking at it. But the warning sign should be is that there is a shipping company that will not only ship your car, but actually will hold your money for you and then send it on to the seller.
The people who noticed this latest crime aren't cops, but price comparison experts. When they saw websites offering right-hand drive bargains, they knew they were too good to be true.
People were very attracted to these deals. You know, it's a good price, you know, a new car, you'd save a lot of money buying this. So the question is, why not?
Many of the why nots are laid to rest by advice from the criminals themselves on their sites. Check your car out before parting with any cash, they say.
They're always insistent that you carry out a history check. Now, of course, you do the history check, and of course it comes back fine. There is no outstanding finance, there is no, you know, stolen, recovered, and it's never been written off in an accident. So, this, you know, you're already starting to get some green lights on why it's definitely okay to go ahead with this deal.
The cars check out because they haven't been stolen. They belong to innocent people who have no idea they're being used and are not really for sale. Once you send your money to the crooks, you'll never see it or the car you think you've bought again.
That car, which they don't own and, you know, they've got no intention of selling you, will never ever turn up on your doorstep.
Not only is the scam generating big business for the criminals, but by hiding behind the internet, they run little risk of being found.
I think it's fair to say criminals that engage themselves in this sort of criminality are very, very good at what they do. It's what they do for a living, it's what they've done for many, many years. So they will try and do whatever they can to throw up a smokescreen to make our lives harder.
The advice from those who discovered the crime is simple. Don't take anything for granted on any cars for sale websites.
Do take responsibility and assume that this is a scam until you prove to yourself otherwise. If the car is cheaper than it should be, then genuinely and seriously ask yourself questions whether this is a proper car from a proper seller. Secondly, if you can't get hold of the buyer, direct, if you can't speak to them on the phone or can't meet them in person, again, ask real serious questions about whether that's a genuine seller or not.
But the internet works both ways. The innocent can also use it to turn the tables on the car thieves. Jack Dobson is 30 years old and has two loves in his life, his girlfriend Jenny and a rare 1964 Land Rover. In April 2006, Jack and Jenny drove the Land Rover to Bath, parking it outside the flat where they were staying. In the morning, it was no longer there.
I remembered where I'd parked it, walked up the road and it'd gone. My initial thoughts were maybe I'd parked it further up the road. Obviously, I wandered up the road, no sign of it. I just couldn't believe that someone would have taken it.
The police couldn't find any sign of it either, and it quickly dawned on Jack that all he had left of his other love was a pile of photographs which charted their 14-year relationship.
I was 16, I decided I wanted to get a vehicle that I could rebuild and restore. The Land Rover I found had been languishing in a barn for 13 years. The moment we turned up the driveway and I saw this Land Rover, I sort of fell in love with it.
Falling in love meant a year spent restoring the Land Rover to its former glory. It made the separation all the more painful.
I was absolutely devastated. The Land Rover to me was like a family member. When I'd rebuilt it with my dad. My mum had even helped. Absolutely devastated. I just couldn't believe someone would stoop to that level. I took it upon myself just to keep checking eBay and other online sales websites. And As sad as it might sound, I was basically checking it more or less every sort of 1 to 2 weeks. I knew if I saw it advertised, even with a different identity, I knew I'd recognise it.
Jack Dobson searched the cyber world for 2 years before his luck changed.
I was actually down in Cornwall at my parents' place, looking on eBay, and I typed in V8 Land Rover, and this red Series 2 Land Rover came up. Although they changed the colour, made it into a hard top, changed it from a soft top, put it into a hard top, I instantly recognised it.
Dobson reported his discovery to the police, who were quick off the mark.
They phoned me within an hour that they'd been to the Land Rover and they'd checked the vehicle identification number and instantly confirmed that it was mine.
The police also told Jack they were going to recover the car from the unsuspecting person who'd bought it from the thief.
I just couldn't believe that I was finally going to get this Land Rover back. I hadn't seen it for sort of 2.5 years. And here she is, looking slightly sorry for herself, because I've made a start on rebuilding her, basically.
Jack Dobson is once again spending time with his love, putting her back the way she was, but he realises that his good news is someone else's loss.
Unfortunately, the people that were trying to sell it on eBay, who it turned out were completely innocent, they ended up losing the Land Rover and losing the money they'd paid. I understand they were absolutely devastated about it.
I think it's important to say that if you buy a stolen car in the UK, 99% of the time you lose the car and you lose the money.
To the north, the Crash for Cash team is still following their prime suspect, Mohammed Patel, and secretly filming him. They now know he drives to work in a silver Passat, registered to an accident claims management company. The surveillance footage confirms a link between Patel and the fraudulent firm.
Almost at this point, we thought we must have the right man here. That's too much of a coincidence.
The coincidence was nailed a few hours later when Patel causes a low-speed accident with a white Sprinter van on a nearby roundabout.
He engaged in a slam-on type collision. Obviously, at that point, we knew we'd got the right man.
The police continued to watch as Patel exchanged insurance details and set in motion another expensive fake claim.
There's very little damage to these motor vehicles, and in fact we do have still images of the Sprinter that we took afterwards. The damage is so minimal, it's untrue, and that's not consistent with what's being claimed for in relation to this.
Once again, Patel's Crash for Cash is processed through the claims management company, and the task force put in plainclothes officers to try and confirm that their man is more than just a paid, hired hand.
The scene now swaps over to the address in Burnley, which is the accident management centre. As you can see, there's Mr Patel in his own vehicle again, leaving his vehicle, walking up the road, and the accident management centre is situated within this building here. He is actually quite clearly seen to go inside, and officers do give evidence that he's seen to make himself very, very comfortable inside, and at one point he was actually recorded as having been asleep.
Mohammed Patel didn't sleep for long. A single Crash for Cash wasn't enough for his working day.
He leaves the premises to go and commit a second staged road traffic accident, only this time back in the Manchester area. And footage is then obtained of them preparing what is in essence the delivery of the second vehicle that they're going to use for the second staged accident.
Patel will be driving. The man in the centre will be a passenger. Undercover cops with stills cameras follow the Golf as it heads off.
They just went round and round and round, around a series of roundabouts, attempting to get people to drive into the back of him, braking heavily for no reason. And it just goes on and on and on like that, until eventually he does manage to get the vehicle to run into the back of him, and the video footage takes over again.
This time, Patel has picked a particularly soft target, a young woman on her own. His choice wasn't an accident.
Often they actually try and profile the type of individual that they go for. And an example of this is, on a lot of the crash for cash scenarios and roundabouts, we've noted that the roundabouts have been near to quite big shopping areas. So they do it on a weekday when most individuals are at work, but it's individuals who tend to be off are young mums who unfortunately have children and can be distracted by them, or the more elderly. They can use the excuse of, well, did you react quick enough? The horrendous situation is, we've seen in some incidents an individual who was 36 weeks pregnant and somebody has slammed on the vehicle, her car has gone into the back, and that poor woman's ended up being induced, having a caesarean because there was damage to her pelvis.
The young lady involved was really, really upset. She was quite devastated by this. He hasn't got a clue what she's going to do in reaction to him slamming his brakes on in front of her. The potential is he could quite have easily seriously hurt or killed her.
Patel won't be making the claim in his name. His passenger, who tells the distraught woman he was driving, will do that, throwing in a false whiplash injury for good measure.
Mr. Patel there taking a nice background role. He's not getting involved at all. He's keeping himself out of the way so that he doesn't come to their attention.
Not getting involved also means persuading the passenger to make the phone call reporting the crash.
Okay, do you know what time the accident happened?
Timing was, I think it was about 4 or 5 o'clock.
Okay.
Basically, we were just driving normally, come to a stop, a junction, a roundabout, and before I knew it, someone just banged into behind me.
Okay, I'll just write this on the system.
Mohammed Patel was then followed from this second accident and made his way home. It's just what he does for a living. He gets paid to crash cars and make money from this.
But Patel's money-making days were over. The police had heard and seen enough.
We arrested Mohammed Patel at his home address in Bolton. We spent a couple of days interviewing him, putting the collisions to him that had occurred on the A34, and as you would, showing him the evidence, the photographic evidence that we had, and giving him the opportunity to comment on that evidence. Mohammed Patel made no comment to any of the questions that were put to him.
While Patel kept quiet, the police filmed the home he shared with his girlfriend, revealing a criminally funded life of luxury.
They're expensive electrical goods, large plasma screen television, designer clothes, lovely furnishings, leather suites, all which appeared extremely new.
Mohammed Patel caused a total of 93 low-speed accidents. He was paid £500 for each. As befits the master of crash for cash, Patel had top-of-the-range luxury cars, which never went anywhere near a staged accident.
Because of the financial rewards, they have seen the insurance industry as easy pickings. It's not pin money. I think organised gangs can make millions of pounds a year.
In Coventry, Britain's National Vehicle Crime Intelligence Service, AVCIS, is on the trail of foreign gangs. Not crash for cash franchises, but a new type of car fraud run by a group of sophisticated auto criminals from Eastern Europe.
And that's international driver's licence.
It is, yeah.
We're running an operation looking at a Lithuanian organised crime group based in the southeast who are using stolen forged bankers' drafts to steal cars.
The professional car thieves don't steal cars from the street or our driveways. They buy them using fake bankers' drafts, which are thought to be as good as cash.
It appears to have been happening in a number of false areas, and this is when the documents has been faxed through to us. It appears to be the same batch.
The way it works is this: you pay your banker's draft into your account and it will show as cleared in your account. It then takes 3 to 5 working days to go through to the originating bank, who obviously detect the fraud, will then notify your bank that the banker's draft is a fake and withdraw the money back out of your account. The car, in the meantime, has probably already gone to Poland, Belarus, Ukraine and Russia, long gone, so of course you have no comeback.
One of the gang's victims is businessman Mike Devin. When he decided to sell his BMW, he advertised it on a second-hand car website. He was soon contacted by a man with an Eastern European accent who arranged to come round.
This is where I
first met the purchaser when he came. He had a good look around the car. Spent about half an hour looking at it, and we went for a test drive around the block, took him down the road for about 5 or 10 minutes, not very long. And then he said he'd call me back probably the next day to let me know whether he's interested or not.
When the phone call came, it was good news. The man wanted the BMW and was prepared to pay the asking price of £9,500.
Yes, it is. He said, "How do you want to be paid?" And I said, "Banker's draft, please." He told me he didn't know what a banker's draft was. Could I explain what that was? And he said he had probably just time to get to the bank to get the banker's draft, and he'd be round later that evening.
To get a genuine banker's draft from a bank, you need to prove you have the funds in your account, which is why it's considered as good as cash. So, having checked the buyer's passport, Mike Devin was prepared to let the buyer drive the BMW away.
The first thing to raise the alarm was a phone call we got the following day from the bank. They explained then that they weren't sure, but it may be a forgery. So then I think at that moment my heart sank and thought, yeah, we've got a problem here.
The problem quickly turned into a nightmare. The bank confirmed the draft as a forgery, and Mike Devin realised he'd lost his car to a criminal gang.
The forgery was very good. The passport that I was shown with the banker's draft was a forgery. So if you can forge a passport fairly well, probably not that difficult to forge a banker's draft.
These are professional people. They make their living doing it. They're not interested in getting up and going to work at 9, finishing at 5 like the most of us. They will make their living stealing cars.
The activities of the Eastern European bankers' draft car thieves have also attracted the attention of the police in North Yorkshire, where there's been a whole series of bankers' draft thefts.
On every occasion, the person with whom the victim had dealings with produced some identification, often a European driving licence, which in fact was always fake, and always had with them a banker's draft signed out in the victim's name prior to meeting.
The victims of this latest form of car theft have sometimes been left with a double loss when their insurance companies refuse to pay out.
Quite often what we were finding out was that insurance policies wouldn't cover the theft by means of deception.
The police were at a loss as to how to best advise victims like Mike Devin.
The only thing you can do is to wait 5 working days for the banker's draft to clear, which I accept is not the most pragmatic or practical of solutions.
It's 3 a.m, North London. A domestic CCTV camera records 2 youngsters giving the inside of a car parked in a cul-de-sac the once over, checking for sat-navs or other valuables. This is an affluent area, and the owner of the car installed her own CCTV because there have been a spate of thefts from cars in her neighbourhood. Each time, the owners were convinced they'd locked the cars with their remote key fobs.
I came down in the morning and I realised that my car was open, the glove box was open, and anything in the car had been disturbed. There was no sign of any breakage or damage to the car. Anyway, I went straight to my CCTV cameras, and at 3:23 in the morning, I saw 2 young lads come along on bicycles and saw them approach the car. One went in one door, one went in the other, and they rummaged around. And luckily for me, there wasn't anything of value for them to take, and they went away.
Susan Franks was sure she'd locked her car before going to bed, and that the thieves on bikes weren't just opportunists who happened to be passing.
If anybody comes down this road and they're not visiting one of the neighbours, it's always very suspicious being amused. Found out afterwards that my neighbour had it done twice in the last 3 or 4 months. People think they've gone mad and left their cars open, but they actually haven't.
The police believe Susan and her neighbours have become victims of organised criminals who use high-tech radio jamming devices to block the signals from car key fobs and then send in young thieves to rummage through the unlocked car.
By just pressing that button, we all presume the car is locked, and 9 times out of 10 that car is locked. You used to have to buy very expensive pieces of kit in order to be able to block that system. So it's quite difficult for a thief to actually go ahead and do that. With cheap imports coming from countries that aren't regulated, the electronic equipment coming in are using similar frequencies. So they're finding that electronic equipment that's readily available can do this job.
I think the average car user will be deeply shocked to know that you can walk into any DIY superstore and buy a relatively cheap piece of equipment that really is the key to their car. It's cheap, it's simple, it's easily available.
Forensic locksmith Ron Cliff knows a lot about breaking into cars. He and his mate Rene know exactly how the crooked radio signal jammers do it.
Unlocked, locked. Get an audible noise and you get the flashes come on. Check, the door is now locked. Okay, let's see if we can now lock the vehicle by the jammers in progress. Ready, steady, go.
And the signal can be jammed on just about any make of car.
Let's check to see if it's open. It's open, which means the jammer has succeeded. And unless you come back and actually check that your door is locked by pulling the handle, the chances are that it may not be locked. By the time you've got your briefcase under your arm and your sandwiches, etc., and you're walking off to rush to the next appointment, are you actually looking to see that the lights are flashing? Have you actually come back and checked that the vehicle is locked? I don't think so.
The police in North London haven't caught the people responsible for the early morning break-ins. But Susan Franks now always double-checks she's locked her car before she walks away. But stealing what's inside our cars isn't the only thing on the agenda of the high-tech jammer criminals. They're already working on ways to take the car itself electronically.
Most manufacturers like ourselves are making the vehicle more and more secure, and it is becoming more difficult for criminals to steal the car without the key, and that is to actually physically take the car, because you've got to overcome immobilisers and other complex systems in order to be able to drive that car away.
The thieves are working as we speak on new devices and new electronics to overcome the standard fit systems that you get in cars, and we're worried that, yes, they will be able to start driving cars away again in the not too distant future.
The future is now.
The devices in the box here, you will be able to go in there and you can defeat the immobiliser system, and the car will be up running in a very, very short time. They can crack most of the system. So that's going to be the next phase, no doubt about that.
As the police in London play catch-up with the radio jammers, Greater Manchester's Crash for Cash squad are wrapping up their investigation into the gang they believe defrauded insurance companies of at least £1.6 million.
Well, the investigation to date has involved an enormous amount of resources in carrying out the execution of evidence warrants, the recovery of exhibits, the interview of offenders. To date, we've arrested 50 individuals, and 33 of those individuals are now charged. Prosecution-wise, it amounts to in excess of 15,000 pages of evidence and some 2,700 exhibits.
Unravelling the truth behind some of the fraudulent personal injury claims has been the biggest challenge. Large sums of money were paid out for false whiplash injuries sustained in the fake crashes.
A whiplash claim will generally pay around £3,000. And while they've got their whiplash, they don't work, so there's a loss of earning claims. So something that people see as a £1,000 or £2,000 whiplash claim quite quickly becomes a £50,000, £60,000, £70,000 claim.
Whiplash is the most difficult road crash injury to disprove. But scientists in a specialist insurance-funded lab at Thatcham in Berkshire have been trying to find ways of doing just that.
Whiplash is a huge problem for the insurers. Not only are there 430,000 cases annually for the UK, which cost the insurers about 1.8 billion, about 30% of those are fraudulent. That's people either exaggerating or completely fraudulent claims, cash for crash. And because it's very difficult to diagnose or treat whiplash injuries, it's open for people to make a claim.
This lab uses sophisticated whiplash tests to work out when someone is likely to have suffered genuine whiplash. The tests also help reduce whiplash injuries.
It's So he's a dummy designed just for rear impact crashes. And so he's got an articulated spine with sensors along the spine, and we can measure the accelerations of the head and the neck and measure these differential forces. And when those forces are too high, we can then predict that someone will be injured.
Often it's our car seats which provide the answers to whiplash riddles.
This seat has what we call a reactive head restraint. So there's a pressure pad in the seat there, and as the occupant loads the seat, the head restraint is automatically moved forward. And seats like this have been shown to reduce whiplash injuries by up to 40%.
Designing out whiplash is only half the story. Thatcham scientists are also helping to catch the crash for cash fraudsters like Mohammed Patel.
Some of the data that Thatcham provides is supplying the insurance industry with knowledge about who's likely to be injured in a crash, who's likely to claim, and who shouldn't be injured in a crash.
Manchester's crash for cash ring sometimes used their own cars to commit their crimes. But that meant they had to wait until they'd been replaced or repaired before they could go again. Other gangs have found a way of using the insurance companies to provide them with replacement cars so they can continue crashing for cash without losing any time. Many fully comprehensive policies give you a like-for-like courtesy car while yours is being fixed. This car hire company, based near Birmingham, specialises in supplying replacement cars to people who are fully comp. They have 6,000 courtesy cars of all makes and sizes. Des Roach is an ex-copper, the leader of a new 10-strong fraud team that the car lending company has taken on.
This morning's operation relates to an accident that was presented to us in February.
It's 5 a.m. The anti-fraud team are preparing to snatch back one of their replacement cars. They believe it's involved in a crash for cash scam in Shropshire.
It's a serious accident. He's rear-ended another vehicle on the approach to an island, and clearly this looks like a contrived accident. The insurers are intent, and that's the reason for the recovery this morning. It's imperative that this vehicle comes off the road. Clearly, we need to protect our vehicle from further damage. Not only that, as the interests of protecting the public, this individual may, in fact, have another accident with an innocent member of the public, not only damage their vehicle, but cause them serious injury. And that's a major concern to us, and we've got to be seen to be doing something about it.
Des Roach is not the only former policeman on the books. The rest of his team were cops too.
Just try and treat this recovery job really as a police operation, you know.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's our necks on the line, so to speak, so if we don't do the homework, we can end up having confrontations with somebody.
To use an old police saying, failing to plan is planning to fail.
The planning involves special crime pattern analysis programs, which align with satellite tracking systems, pinpointing where a replacement hire car is or has been.
I've plotted all the ignition off events and the stationary engine on events.
Roach and his team are convinced their suspect is a close friend of the man who drove into their vehicle, known as the third party, and that they were also neighbours.
Right, we've got a client's home address there. As you can see, regular visits, obviously stops there each night. Third party lives right around the corner on this road here. And again, as we can see, our vehicle's been visiting there numerous times.
Super.
Right.
To prove that their client is lying about his relationship with the third party who crashed into him, Roach's team have recorded a phone call.
Okay. And what about the other car? Did they have any passengers in it? The guy on his own. Chap on his own. And do you know this chap? Or? Yeah, I know him. You know him? And how do you know him? Cleaned my car. He cleaned your car? Yeah, he owns the car wash. Oh, right. So you only know him from the car wash then? Yeah. You don't know him as a friend or anything like that then? No. Okay. So you don't know where he lives then? You've had to get that from his mate, yeah? Okay, super.
Yeah.
Back to right.
Yeah. We've obviously heard the client speaking to us, telling us that he doesn't know the third party, basically. He only knows him because he washes his car. He doesn't know where he lives originally. We had to get that detail. that evidence based with this evidence here showing that he clearly does visit the address, proving that he's lying to us and that the incident was potentially staged and fraudulent, and that we can obviously go after him for it.
And this is the vehicle we're going for this morning.
The vehicle is in Telford, Shropshire, and this is just one of 7 fraud-related snatchbacks that this team go for every week.
We try and take them by surprise, if you like, because obviously if they knew that we're coming to try and get our vehicle back, they're going to sort of take measures to prevent us from doing so.
Looks like we're coming up onto the location now.
And we're now looking for our vehicle. Sat-navs are great, but they don't tell you about bollards blocking roads off and things. I mean, like it could be parked anywhere. That's it. Yeah.
The snatch team have the spare keys to the car they want.
Obviously what we're going to do is keep as far away as we can, but I want to keep Tony in view, just in case there's any problems. I can sort of come and assist him. Yep.
Only when the car is safely back in his hands will Des Roach break the news to the crash for cash suspect.
The reason I phoned you this morning is to advise you that we've had to recover our car this morning.
Yeah.
Are you aware of that?
What car?
Our hire car.
The one that I'm now?
Yeah, we've been and collected it this morning.
Yeah. I don't get another insurance car.
What do?
I don't get another kids' car.
How do you get another courtesy car? Well, I'm afraid that's something that you're going to have to discuss with your own insurance company because we're in a position where we're not able to assist you any longer. Didn't seem too fazed by the fact that we'd recovered our car, which is a bit of a sort of telltale sign. That really was very nonchalant. Couldn't care less attitude, really.
The circumstances mean that the ex-cops aren't finished yet.
Right, one Fighters Only magazine.
There may be clues in the car which will link their man to the frauds.
We've got something from West Mercia Constabulary, which would be the police local to the client's area. And surprise, surprise, it's regarding a road collision. But it looks like this client's very, very unlucky. He seems to have quite a few road accidents.
It's not only criminals who are having quite a few road accidents. A recent survey found that 1 in 5 British motorists admitted they were tempted to cheat on their insurance claims. In 2008, there were more than 35,000 insurance frauds, worth £360 million.
We've noticed it particularly in the motor fraud, motor road traffic accident scenarios that there's been a massive increase recently.
Individuals who previously would never have ever considered being involved in fraud are sitting in their house with no job and can't pay the mortgage. And they think, if I just do this, what am I doing? It's a victimless crime.
It's actually affecting each and every one of us because it's putting £44 on every single person's insurance policy because where it goes undetected, it's obviously being paid.
But what we are finding is that the opportunist fraudster are in the market today believing it's their God-given right to claim. They believe they've spent the last 5 years paying a good fee into their insurers and now is the time the insurer should be paying back.
To try and stop the payback, Britain's motor insurers have turned to a high-tech voice analysis programme, which they believe can help expose frauds and cheats. It relies on a phone call and some careful questions.
Would it be convenient for us to speak this morning in respect of your claim? We carry out a cognitive interview with a policyholder, and by doing that we can analyse the language they use, the detail that they give, and the emotion attached to that incident. Once we've done that, we accumulate the information and put it into our flatline system. And someone that is genuine and making a genuine claim should really display a visual image that's up and down in waves associated with, for example, high emotion. Someone that is lying and making a fraudulent claim would be a flat line.
The flatliners are always investigated further, but the fraud team is finding that even the first phone call is a deterrent.
And if I can ask you to talk me through in as much detail as possible and explain
The
that.
first thing we would do is advise them that the call is being recorded. Now, for an innocent party, there's no issues there whatsoever. The call proceeds accordingly. For somebody who's acting fraudulently, there's a few little time bombs start going off in their head. Through the beginning of our procedure to the end of our procedure, of 100 calls or claims that have been referred to us by our insurer clients, 27% of them will go away.
A 1 in 4 claims withdrawal is massive, but the investigators don't stop there. The second recorded interview is even more probing.
Yes, it's important for myself to have a full understanding of what's happened surrounding the theft of your vehicle.
The man Emma Griffiths is talking to has put in a theft claim because he says his Range Rover was stolen from his friend's driveway. He left it there while he went on holiday.
I see. And when your friend realised that your car had been stolen, did he notify your wife? No? Why is that? This vehicle has a substantial amount of finance owed on it, and we've actually discovered just prior to doing the interview that this policyholder had made inquiries with the finance company for an early settlement figure, and also with a local dealer to see what figure he could get trading in the car, and that is actually quite a bit lower than the finance owed, so the policyholder did stand to gain by making this claim. Why did the police suspect you of being involved?
I don't know, you'd have to ask the police that.
These insurance investigators have no powers to prosecute those who they catch making false claims. All they can do is hope that the police will do it for them.
We do believe that the police are going to arrest this policyholder and interview him in relation to what he's reported.
In Greater Manchester, there is satisfaction that they have smashed the Crash for Cash franchise run by Mohammed Patel. But the police are only too aware that they haven't even begun to win the war.
The impact we've made on this type of criminality is merely scratching the surface. I think there's many more Mr. Patels out there. However, I think as far as the North West is concerned, sufficient disruption's been done by arresting the individuals that we've arrested to send a clear message out to say, we won't tolerate this. We will pursue you relentlessly. We will bring you to justice. You will get prosecuted. We will take your assets off you. If you want to take that risk, expect a knock at the door.
Mohammed Patel pleaded guilty and was sent to jail for 4.5 years. It was said at court that he played Russian roulette with people's lives. The luxury cars owned by him and his girlfriend were sold at auction. 37 other fraudsters involved in the same ring have also been found guilty. They include 2 brothers who ran the Burnley-based company that processed Mohammed Patel's fake claims, making this one of Britain's biggest ever Crash for Cash scams.